All right, this is Sports for Real. Got a few minutes to come on and talk about what happened over the weekend in college football. I told you that I had a feeling that the Gators would show up in Jacksonville against the Bulldogs. And I also said that if they were to show up, they will have to play a complete game to be able to have a chance to beat Georgia. Well, both those things came true because Florida pretty much controlled the game. They got some turnovers from Carson Beck, the Jacksonville native. He was just trying to give the game away to the Gators, it seemed like. But the Gators, in true fashion, they turned around to give the game back to the Bulldogs. They were running the football, but when the game was on the line the most, they went away from the run, especially since their quarterback, once he got hurt, you had to bring in a guy with no experience, and he just was not able to do it when the game was on the line. But if you just continued to run the football and make timely passes, then you could have probably pulled that out. Even still, it came down to 20-20. Georgia finally took the lead. Then the first play, the guy turns around and he throws the interception. They could have ran the football. They had enough time to move down the field. They decided that we're going to try to beat these dogs by throwing the ball, and that wasn't what kept them in the game. Anytime that you have a team that is not that good and you're struggling, you're not hitting on all cylinders, what you need to do is run the football to get that clock moving, shorten the game. Keep getting first downs, keep moving on. It's the same old way from back in however long ago it was. Football does not change. If you're a bad football team, you have to find a way to get that clock moving, and you have to get first downs, and the way to do that is to run the football. Now, the question is, will Indiana fold? Texas A&M and Indiana were in perfect positions to be upset darlings to be entrants into their conference championship games. Well, Texas A&M, they went to South Carolina, which they're a better team, but when you go on the road and the crowd gets going and you start to make mistakes, it's hard to overcome some environments. And going into this, South Carolina has been a dangerous opponent. They had Alabama on the ropes. They had a couple other games they should have won, but they hadn't been able to put it all together. Well, they put the game together against Texas A&M, and it puts them into a three-way tie for first, pretty much, with Georgia and Alabama. Is Texas A&M eliminated? No, because all they have is Auburn, who's not playing well at all, and then you have your rival Texas. You know you're going to show up for that, especially as a home game. It's going to come down to tiebreakers in the end to see who goes to the SEC championship game, and I still think that Texas A&M controls their own destiny. If they can get by Auburn and Texas, then expect to see A&M against either Georgia or Alabama in the SEC championship game. So again, what's next? Indiana. Indiana dusted off Michigan State, and they're down to 2 more conference games. They're 9-0 for the first time in school history. They have Michigan this week, who is not the Michigan you've seen the last couple of years. They're struggling. They can't score the ball like they need to score the ball, and that makes Indiana a very, very dangerous opponent for Michigan. In times past, you schedule an opponent like Indiana toward the end of the season so you can get on down to the big game against Ohio State or the team up north, and you'd be well for that. But this year, they're the fly in the ointment. This team here is playing good football, even with a backup quarterback. So it also works into Indiana's favor. If they can get by Michigan this week, they got 2 weeks to get ready for Ohio State. And added to that, Ohio State has Michigan the week after they have Indiana. So it comes to be a play-in game for Ohio State if they're going to get to the conference championship game. Also, you could be having a rematch. I don't see Oregon falling at this point, but it looks to me like if Ohio State can get through that gauntlet, they're going to have a rematch with Oregon. And I think that Indiana, the way they're playing right now, is a very, very dangerous opponent, because I think that Ohio State's going to be looking ahead to Michigan, even though Michigan is struggling. So that is a problem. Now, I say that because if you look at the Georgia game, I told you they were going to show up because they're rivals. If they come in there and they feel like they can win the game, they can compete. Well, you know Ohio State's want to play Michigan, especially after losing three straight games, so that favors Indiana. if they get by this game, we're looking at an Indiana-Oregon matchup in the Big Ten championship game. So I think that'll be rather interesting, to say the least. But college football, you never know what you're going to get. In some instances, it's also kind of predictable. Most people would have predicted that South Carolina would have beaten Texas A&M simply because it was in the cards for that kind of a shakeup. Now, I also told you a couple weeks ago that it's very possible that you can have two teams in the SEC with 2 losses playing for the championship. And Georgia's not out of the woods yet. They still have to play Ole Miss and Tennessee. They can lose either one of those. Alabama, normally Auburn would be a threat. They still may be a threat, but for the most part, Alabama's got a cakewalk into the championship game. But then again, they may not because, they lost to Vanderbilt. So basically, as always, any team can get beat at any time. But it's going to be very interesting. But I would say keep an eye on Indiana because if they get by Michigan, they got 2 weeks to get ready for Ohio State team that's going to be looking ahead to play against Michigan. And that's a recipe for disaster for the Buckeyes. So we might just be looking at a Hoosier Duck Big Ten championship game. All right. I give Trevor Lawrence a little trouble. If you guys know who I am, I do the Fango Media post-game interviews with fans after games here at Jacksonville. And a lot of fans, they're not very happy with Trevor Lawrence. And he got more fuel last night. They were down like 18-0 at halftime. They came storming back, made it a game. They made a stop to get the ball back, and all they had to do was go down and score. He had a couple big plays, but in the end, Lawrence throws a bad pass in the end zone and it gets picked off. That's what your $250 million gets you. So, the fans, they're not going to be too happy about that. But, the Jaguars kind of remind you of USC. USC is now 4-5. They lost to the lowly Washington Huskies. Every team they lose to, they're a better team. This is a team that I think should be 9-0, but the coach, I don't know what he thinks. I guess he thinks he's still at Oklahoma where you can go play somebody that you can expect to win. But now with these packed conferences, you can't afford to do that. And they have the mindset that, we can get in there and hit you in the mouth and you're supposed to fall. But if you don't fall, then what am I going to do next? It's like a bully. You hit him in the mouth. He wasn't expecting it. Now he's stuck. Well, that's what USC looks like. They keep losing the teams they're supposed to beat. But they are what they are. If you keep doing the same thing, that's just who you are. So you don't deserve to be a 9-0 football team, even though you control every single game that you're in. But you know that the LA fan base, they're not very happy. And I don't know if Riley's going to survive this year. He came in making $20 million that first year, and he's making about $10-12 million a year. He's well compensated. And like he said, he can't put his finger on why they keep folding in these games. And it's going to end up costing him his job. If he comes back, he'll have a team, with a quarterback a little bit more experience, and they will have an opportunity to do something, finish games next year that they couldn't possibly finish this year. But, like my college coach said, every team has a character, and USC's got one, just like Jacksonville. They'll find a way to blow it in the end. So when the Vikings come to town next week, they're going to be 2-7. And I don't know if anybody's going to show up. It's not the ain't level yet because it's still a good team if they don't make mistakes. Just like the Gators, they couldn't afford to make mistakes against the Bulldogs. But when the game was on the line the most, they folded. They cracked. Trevor Lawrence cracked. The Gators turned the ball over. They fumbled the ball on the field goal exchange that allowed Georgia to get another touchdown. Really, they outplayed Georgia. But you can't beat a championship caliber team with a lot of second half heart like Georgia if you're going to make mistakes. All right, let's see what we got here. I'm as hard as I've ever been. Nick Shearer says that. If you want more views, oil up. I don't know what that means, man. That means I got a shiny head. That's fine. Brittany Percival, how you doing? What is this chat? I'm just talking college football, man. That's all I'm doing. And if you guys like what I'm talking about, I try to come on every morning. And when I go down to the Jaguar games with Fango Media, you can catch me outside the stadium. I'll be going live with the pregame and tailgating, and all during the game I'll be giving rolling commentary before I actually get into the postgame interviews with the fans. Then I'll come back on and do some more under my label. So I'll be out there pretty much all day. So if you want to talk football, tune in on Sundays about 11 o'clock, and you get your feel of it coming from me. I feel you're up to date with college football, and I'm also going to tell you about what's taking place with the Jaguars and everybody else in the NFL. Ravens bounced back yesterday. The regular season Ravens, I call them. They'll do great in the regular season, but when it comes time to the playoffs, completely different animal. I told you guys before there's a blueprint if you want to beat the Ravens, and I hadn't seen any changes to that, despite the fact that they got Derrick Henry, the monster, the moving building, all of the superlatives you might want to call him. The guy's that good, but if you can't get started, it don't make a difference. And it's going to come down to the quarterback. Can you make a couple of throws when it count the most? And like I said, that's what I'm waiting to see from this guy, and he's disappointed me every time. Maybe this year is different, but they keep losing games. They won 5 straight, then they lost a game last week, so what they were, 6-3 now? But still, their defense, they make a lot of penalties. They got a lot of issues in Baltimore, and it's going to crop his head in the playoffs again, I think. But that's just me talking. Anyway, just to recap, Texas A&M, they no longer control their destiny, but they still can get to the championship game based on tiebreakers. They're going to have to get by Texas. First, they have to beat Auburn. Then they have to beat Texas. That's going to be an elimination game right there. And then the other elimination is Georgia, Alabama. Of course, if they have a tie, then Alabama's going to get Georgia. But Georgia still has to play Tennessee and Ole Miss. So there's no guarantee that Georgia won't lose another game. I don't think Alabama will. I don't think, well, I can't say that because Texas or A&M, one of them are going to lose. And I think that between that game, somebody's going to go to the championship game to go against either Georgia or Alabama. And Indiana, to me, looks like they got the clearest road to the championship game in their conference because they're going to beat Michigan this week. They're not as good as they've been in the last couple of years. And they got 2 weeks to get ready for an Ohio State team that will be playing their biggest rival a week afterward. Their attention is clearly going to be looking at what Michigan going to do or what they could do against them, and they're not going to have the full focus of Indiana. So I think that's an advantage to the Hoosiers. So I think it would be great to see some new blood in these championship games so people can get a different look instead of seeing the same old cast of characters all the time. So I'm looking forward to that. But the question is, will Indiana fold just like Texas A&M did? I don't think so. But until then, until we can find out for sure, I'll be pulling for them. So anyway, I got to get to work. I appreciate you guys chiming in with me. This has been Sports for Real. If I don't catch you tonight, I'll see you in the morning. I got to go to work. I'm out.